Do we not trust Academy Award winning screenwriter Ryan Coogler, the same man who brought us Black Panther, Fruitvale Station, Wakanda Forever, and Sinners, the film that we can't stop talking about? It came out last year and we're still talking about it. There have been so many think pieces and discourse, all mostly positive, and so many podcasts, ours included, so many podcasts about this film, and there will continue to be. Do we not trust that Ryan Coogler will cook? Inquiring minds would like to know. Hey pod, it's been a minute. In fact, we've been off and on for about a couple of months here. This episode is going to be a slightly different format from what you're used to because we wanted to update you on what's been going on and talk a little bit about Black representation in fantasy. But before I get to that, if this is your first time listening and or watching, welcome to the pod. I'm Jackie McGriff, your host of Representation in Cinema. We talk about the films that center Black, Brown, and Indigenous voices, as well as on the film industry itself. I'm not only your host, but also the founder, director, and co-producer at Our Voices Project, a production company that centers the stories of Black, Brown, and Indigenous peoples through visual storytelling and truth-telling. We are community-engaged filmmakers who firmly believe that you can't center the stories of Black, Brown, Indigenous peoples without being in community and in solidarity with them. If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you go ahead and hit that subscribe button. It's been a while since I've said that, but just to remind you to hit that subscribe button and hit the little bell to get notified about new episodes. If you're listening on your preferred podcast platform, hit that follow button. If you like this episode, at the end after you're done listening, please rate us 5 stars and leave a comment to share your thoughts about any of the things that you heard here on this episode. So like I said before, this episode is going to be a little bit different. It's going to be a bunch of updates and rants. And maybe not too dissimilar of what we usually do. But it's been a while since I've been behind the mic, and I wanted to tell you why. Plus, I wanted to get into Black representation in fantasy with this latest news about Black Panther 3 and Children of Blood and Bone and others. But first, for those of you who are wondering where we've been, I'm here to answer. So, being a full-time photographer, filmmaker. It's been a time. It's very much and also doing all of this while on survival mode is just nuts. And I mean, I know that I'm speaking for at least 99% of us who have been on the struggle bus. It's been difficult, but we were going there, strong for a while, and then I just got burnt out. With trying to find supplemental income, with trying to get gigs here and there, with getting gigs, and then having to devote so much of my time to that. It was just it got harder and harder to come up with ideas for episodes. And I know there's like movies coming out, all the time. And we could just talk about those, but I couldn't afford to go to the movies, and I was actually getting bored of sitting and going through streaming services and actually watching movies. And I never get bored. I never get bored with that. So it had to have been that I was burnt out. And even if I didn't feel like watching a movie, oftentimes what would happen is I would try to come up with things to talk about, that are going on in the movie world, and I came up short. And again, I listen, if you know me, you know that I don't run out of anything to talk about. I'm always talking about something. I'm very opinionated, if you couldn't already tell. But I was burnt out. All of these things led to me being burnt out, so I actually took some rest. And through all of the struggles, that I've been going through, that I'm still going through, there were a lot of really good things that happened. And I wanted to tell you about many of them. So I'm going to take you through updates, with Our Voices Project, with what's going on with me personally, and all the things in between. And then, of course, like I said, we'll get into that news about Black Panther and Children of Blood and Bone. So I moderated a panel for Mara Ahmed. She was once a local filmmaker. She's now a filmmaker. She currently lives in Long Island. She's a dear friend, and I got to moderate her film called The Injured Body, a film about racism in America. after someone who is near and dear to our community wasn't able to moderate, she asked me to come in and hold the talk after the screening. First of all, this film, The Injured Body, is an incredible is an incredibly powerful film. Um, she interviews, and this took her 8 years to make, um, and it was well worth the wait because it was amazing. The story is, it's a documentary. It's She interviews quite a few women, Black women, and women of color, all through like all with all different walks of life, different abilities, different orientation, different, just everything, like all of these different identities coming together and having these conversations. She also put them in kind of groups to address these like sort of subtopics under this overall umbrella of racism here in America. And it was just so well done. So many of these stories, so many of these things that these women were talking about, I could relate to. Some of them, kind of punched me in my chest a little bit. But it was all very much felt. And so the questions that I got to ask her, um, were amazing because they had been from the previous moderator. But then I also got to ask my own question about how do you keep people safe for these ladies to be vulnerable, to feel as if they could be vulnerable in this space. How did you create that environment? It was a very good discussion. Overall, it was an amazing Q&A. There's always a couple people who you need to kind of steer in the right direction, if you know what I mean. You know what I'm saying. It was a great talk. This is a film that we need right now. So if you are interested, and of course you're interested, definitely go check out her website to request to screen on the film. It's called The Injured Body. Her name is Mara Ahmed. I will have, of course, information on how you can do that in the show notes or in the description, of course, if you're watching on YouTube. But incredible, incredible film. Make sure y'all request. Okay. This is absolutely the movie that we need right now. So yes, like I said, I will have information in the description or in the show notes for you to be able to request to screen this, because this is something that everybody needs to see. I met Rian Johnson. If you don't know who that is, what are you even doing? First of all, this is one of my this is my second favorite director. The first one being Ava DuVernay. Okay, and listen. Okay, this is the same man, yes, behind The Last Jedi. I understand the frustrations with that film. However, what I will not take is Rian Johnson slander. Absolutely not. Okay, this man made Brick. He made The Brothers Blue. He made Looper. He also made the Knives Out series. So Knives Out, of course, The Glass Onion, and of course the last film that I don't know how I'm suddenly not able to come up with with the name of that film. I recently just watched it on Netflix. Yeah, but I met him at the Nitrate Picture Show at George Eastman Museum. It happens every year. If you want to, I can talk to you about the Nitrate Picture Show at a later time because there's so much to cover in this episode. But essentially, it is like, so there are levels to being a film nerd, and it's on a whole other level. But his wife was in the program, and he tagged along, and I was shooting at this film festival, and I'm also an event photographer for those who don't know. But I happened to see this man, and I'm like, why do I recognize him? Because I was in the zone, right? I'm like, I'm focused on getting photos and everything, and it was bothering me. I'm like, why do I recognize this man? Girl, it's Rian Johnson. And so he's starting to walk out, and I just happened to be passing him as he was walking out, and I was like, I just wanted to say, as a filmmaker, as a film fan, I really appreciate everything that you do. I've been a fan since Brick. He's like, oh my God, Brick. And this totally happened. Do I have pictures? No. I do have witnesses, though. Okay. And they happen to work at Witness Palestine Film Festival. Okay. So, okay. Shout out to Cole and Sarah. All right. They know what I'm talking about. They saw it. They saw it with their own eyes. I have witnesses. Anyways, but but I got to meet him, and he was so nice. He was super nice, which is always the thing that I am scared of if and when I meet people who I look up to. I'm always hoping, please don't be mean. Please don't be mean. Even if you are a mean person, just pretend. Okay. Um, and I get it. People have their days, but yeah, no, he was super nice. Appreciated that I had such a callback to his first film, because he was kind of taken aback by that, and but I he seemed to really appreciate what I had to say. Um, yeah, I didn't scream. I screamed in the car right afterwards because oh my god, it's one of my favorite directors ever, Rian Johnson. But yeah, that was pretty cool. Um, I got to screen my film, Being Black in America. For those of you who don't know, again, Being Black in America is a short documentary film in which there are 7 Black Americans that sit down and get into discussion, all answering the question, "What is it to you to be Black in America?" Again, we're all about just surface level, questions here. And I got to film that at City Hall a couple days before Juneteenth. Overall, it was a great experience. It was a very educational experience. Folks seem to enjoy themselves. But the thing about that is the thing about independent filmmaking. There's a lot of stuff that happens um, that you either don't have control over, or there's so many elements that you have to try to put together in order to make things work, not just in like the production but also post-production, in getting screenings and getting the film out there and the distribution phase, all of this. And so there was a cable missing from the speaker because we had to borrow the projector, I had to buy a projector screen, I had to borrow a speaker, and I had the wrong cable to connect the speaker to the projector. And so what I had to do was I had to sit there for 32 minutes, because that's how long the film is, sit there and hold the mic up to the projector the entire time. What we won't do for our films, folks. Yeah, it was again a very educational experience. People who came stayed for the most part. We talked about black art, and how to support black artists. It was a great conversation. It was a great event. But yeah, these are the things that happen. You know, when you're trying to get word out about your film, when you put on a screening, it's nuts. Um, so yeah. The other thing that happened is I got an opportunity to sit and listen to Octavia Spencer when she was receiving the George Eastman Award. It was incredible. She talked a lot about her career, about her decision to be a producer. She is hilarious, and at some point, she was also apologizing to us about talking too much. Man, we literally came to see you. Like, what? So, I mean, I don't know. I guess that gave me some reassurance that, if I think I'm being too much, well, Academy Award winners also think the same. So, I guess that's something. But yeah, it was incredible just to see this woman, this prominent black woman in Hollywood, right, talk about her experience, receive this award, and have it be local. I thought that was very special. I went to the Adirondacks as part of an artist retreat. First of all, 5 days is not enough. Okay, 5 days is not enough. I am very much a nature girly. Okay, there was not enough hiking and canoeing, for me. Um, and I listen. It was beautiful. It was gorgeous. It was an amazing experience. I loved my time there, meeting other artists. The only thing I'll say about it though, real quick, was that it was a little triggering, and by a little I mean quite a bit. It was a retreat, but we also had to respond to these interviews that were held at both the University of Rochester and in Watertown, New York, about loving your country. Some of y'all already know where I'm going with that because you could imagine, the responses in these interviews. Okay. And it was very triggering, many of the talking points and the things that were being said. And we were supposed to respond in an artistic way. So, I mean, there will be, in future, you'll see some things as far as my response, but it was very triggering. Let me just leave it here. Like, it brought me back to 2015 and 2016 under this, going into the first Trump administration. Yeah. So there was that. But again, overall, I enjoy I enjoyed my time. I also got to show Being Black in America up there as well, so that was cool. Someone else was showing a short film of theirs. It was about Ukrainian refugees living in Ireland. That was amazing. The person who showed it actually was the pianist. Um, so because there's obviously music in the background, and she was the pianist that contributed to the score. So that was pretty awesome. I got to teach preteens how to make a film. Thank you to Writers and Books. It was part of their summer write program. I had a week to teach kids how to make a film. Using one of the Newbery Award winning books. They of course picked the most complicated book, fantasy, called The Elf Dog and the Owl Head. And so much happens though in that story. We were supposed to make a 90-second film. It was over 6 minutes. But I mean, listen, a film is as long as it needs to be. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, I taught the kids story mapping, script writing, storyboarding, and cinematography. I think one of those kids is a cinematographer in the making. I taught them camera angles and camera shots, and this boy was over here like, okay, I think we need a medium shot here. I think we need an extreme close up here. I was like, oh my God, go off. I told his mom because they had to present their film to their parents at the end of the week. And that was amazing. They had a little Q&A, they had a little panel discussion because of course with me there's always going to be a panel discussion. And they had a Q&A, and the adults asked the kids, their motivations for picking or and doing different things in film. And so that was so rewarding. And the parents were always talking, they were talking about how much fun the kids had and how excited they were when they came home. And um yeah, I would love more of that. That was seriously rewarding. Um Screened a clip of our film, I think it was last week. Another one of our projects, our work in progress projects, called The Legacy of Pride, which is the story of queer seniors talking about their days of activism. That's in collaboration with the Rainbow Seniors Rock. And a lot of the storytellers within the film, they also had quite a bit to say to younger queer youth, or younger generations, just about continuing the fight for LGBTQIA rights. So the feedback overall was amazing. People seem to resonate with it, and of course that's what you want as a filmmaker. So that was also rewarding last week. So yeah, I'm looking forward to continuing to work on that film. I just wanted to throw this in here real quick. Rochester was looking like Blade Runner 2026 last week. Okay, and I know it was because of the Canadian wildfires. Oh gosh, like my heart goes out to y'all. Brought to us by colonization and directed by Denis Villeneuve. No, seriously, this is why we need Indigenous land sovereignty now. I can go on and on and on about that. But of course, because I don't want to prolong this episode any further than it needs to be, I also just wanted to say real quick before I get to Black representation in fantasy films. Uh, we're starting to get hired for more videography gigs. Shout out to Hinge Neighbors and Genesee Land Trust, who hired us out to shoot highlight reels, event photography, and everything. We've also in the past been hired to shoot documentary short documentaries about what a company is doing or an organization is doing to serve its community. But it's happening more often now where we're getting sought out to do these projects. And so if that is you, if you are part of an organization or a company that is doing many, many things for its community, or you're wanting one of your events covered with videography and doing like a highlight reel. If you are one of those people, either an individual, part of a company, part of an organization, reach out to us. info@ourvoicesproject.com. Information is, of course, in the show notes or in the description if you're watching on YouTube. And yeah, so that is it for the updates with what's been going on with me, what's been going on with Our Voices Project. And now on to my mini rant about about Black representation in fantasy, because lately we've been eaten. I mean, like we get bits and pieces here and there when it comes to Black representation, in these fantasy films and in television. I mean, we've got in science fiction. I've always been someone who has been a huge fan of action, adventure, fantasy, and sci-fi films. Always. I don't remember a time when I wasn't obsessed with that. And throughout the years, we've gotten a few things, but lately I feel like it's been more on the forefront. And I know we talk about movies on this podcast, but I have to talk about House of the Dragon for a second, okay? Or according to us, House of Dragons. And I almost did call it House of Dragons, but I had to stop myself real quick and say House of the Dragon, because that is the name of the show. Um, but yeah, just the way in which we're not side. I mean, sure, we're supporting characters, but we're supporting characters with our own storylines, with us being complex human beings, right? Who get to make mistakes, right? Who are fully fledged humans. Like, we are not these caricatures. We're riding around on dragons too. Like, this is I couldn't put into words like what I was feeling watching recent episodes. And I mean, I've been in it since season 1, of course. But like there was a shot in this current season, most of the Black people who exist in this world, right, are just like standing on a shore, like looking at I think it's Driftmark. For any House of the Dragon fans, let me know if I made a mistake. But I could not help but grin. And I didn't notice myself grinning until after that scene ended. In that moment, it was just such a beautiful scene and representation of us in fantasy. And then I saw like so many people online talking about this, and I was like, okay, of course I'm not the only one who's noticing this, because it's been a time since we've been allowed to be these full complex characters with their own backstory, with their own experiences, and that's all we're asking for. We're not asking for much. This is all we've been asking for in fantasy. So when you have the kids who you are wanting to dress up, or the adults who are wanting to dress up as certain characters and constantly told that they can't because they're Black. Like, this is for them. This is for us. So I'm saying all of that to say there was a recent announcement over the weekend at Comic-Con. Um I'm manifesting that I will be leading a panel one of these days at San Diego Comic-Con. But anyway, so we had a recent announcement of the new Black Panther. The Marvel president, Kevin Feige, comes on to introduce Ryan Coogler, who's going to talk about some huge movie news. And then he announces that, so the kid that we saw at the end of Wakanda Forever, spoiler alert, get on that pronto. But the post-credit scene in Wakanda Forever features the son. So he's announcing that this kid has grown up, and now it's showing him as the new Black Panther. And then they call on David Johnson. Now I haven't seen anything with David Johnson in it. I know there's Rylane, there's Alien Romulus, and there's the latest, The Long Walk, which I have to brace myself for. I had been avoiding it for a while because of just the trailer, the nature of it. And I'm like, ugh, there's too much going on in the world for me to pay attention to something else is just going to be traumatizing. Like, so, um, it's going to take me a bit, but like I will watch this because apparently his acting chops are incredible in that and in everything that he does. But I just want to get your attention to how similar he looks to both the kid at the end of Wakanda Forever and the late Chadwick Boseman. I was actually kind of amazed. I'm gonna put up on the screen just how similar these two look. First with the late Chadwick and with David. He's the same kind eyes and also the same sort of like grin that he has. And then if you look at certain smiling shots of David and then the child actor who played Tucson at the end of Wakanda Forever, um, he they have like the same kind of like it's like the cheekbone structure, like the same kind of smile. Um, I just thought that was incredible. Um, I've also been seeing a lot of people who have been talking down about David Johnson, according to Kevin Feige. So this was in an article, and I can link it again in the show notes in the description if you're watching on YouTube. But Kevin Feige talks about there being a dinner with him and with Ryan Coogler, and Ryan Coogler was actually the one who sought out David Johnson. He felt it in his soul. David was the guy, right? So I just want to say something to all of the people, to all the doubters, to all of the people who are upset that David Johnson is going to be the new Black Panther. First of all, this is not a replacement. This is his son. Okay. No one could ever replace Chadwick Boseman, and they know that. The cast, the crew, they all worked closely with him. So of course they know that. But at the same time, do we not trust Academy Award winning screenwriter Ryan Coogler, the same man who brought us Black Panther, Fruitvale Station, Wakanda Forever, and Sinners, the film that we can't stop talking about? It came out last year and we're still talking about it. There have been so many think pieces and discourse, all mostly positive, and so many podcasts, ours included, so many podcasts about this film, and there will continue to be. Do we not trust that Ryan Coogler will cook? Inquiring minds would like to know. I trust that David Johnson will do a fantastic job. I cannot wait to sit down and watch his other work. And I can't wait for Black Panther 3, December 15th, 2028. A trailer that just dropped. Was Children of Blood and Bone. First of all, the trailer looks amazing. I will be sad. I have the book right. I'm going to read it. Okay. Now, there has been some and first of all, for those of you who don't know, so Children of Blood and Bone was written by Tomi Adeyemi. She was involved in the beginning stages of the film. There has been some controversy, and I can say is that I saw her getting on Instagram, Tomi, getting on Instagram and expressing that she hadn't seen the film. She didn't want to market the film. She wanted nothing to do with the film. Um, and so that struck a chord that seemed odd. And there wasn't really any more information. There was a lot of speculation going on about why, she didn't want to talk about the film, or why she wanted to dissociate from the film. Again, all speculation. I haven't actually seen anything else or anything to support her reasons. Of course, she has her reasons. It's a story about a woman who is blessed with magical powers by the gods and living in a place where she is forbidden. This is the film, which of course will be different from the book. More on that in just a second. But a woman who's blessed with magical powers by the gods and living in a place where she is forbidden to use them teams up with a princess to summon the gods and bring down the oppressive regime. I do know, so that's what the film synopsis is. I know there was also some criticism from Nigerians who were saying that there was colorism at play, because a major plot line in the book is that the princess is of darker complexion. The princess is being portrayed by Amandla Steinberg. Those are completely valid, concerns and criticisms of the casting. But I don't know anything other than that. So I can't say anything to that, only that I wish Tomi well. However, this is directed by Gina Prince Bythewood, who is reuniting with some of the Women King cast. So that is Toussaint Mbedu, Lashana Lynch, and Viola Davis. And it's also starring Damson Idris, Amanda Steinberg, like I said, and Regina King, or as I like to call her, Regina the King, and Idris Elba. It's set to release in January, which seems off. Are they setting it up to fail? Which would be unsurprising, to say the very least. But that just means more of us are going to have to see that film. So save your coin, especially after the holiday season. but set to release January 15th, 2027. The trailer looked amazing. I cannot wait to see it. The book has been sitting on my shelf. Now, one more thing that I want to point out. Okay, for those of you who are listening, I'm holding the book in my hand. I'm holding it up to the camera. So if you're listening, that's what's happening right now. But I will say this, and it's taken me quite a bit of time to acknowledge this. The book and the film are always going to be different. These are two different media that you're talking about. Okay, so if you're someone who likes to read books and then go watch the film, you have to separate the book and the movie, which is an unfortunate thing because you're like, okay, you have the material, you have the source material, you could just translate. Not all things translate. You also have studio executives who are, have different agendas than, the screenwriters versus the director versus, everyone else who is involved in the cast and crew. So it's just going to be different. If you want to get, and even sometimes this is a gamble, if you want to get as close to the book as possible, you make it a series. We're talking about mini films that you can dive deeper into detail with. You know what I mean? And even like I said, this is a gamble because there's depending on the book, there will be some license taken, or creative license, I should say, that are taken with the book. I mean, even with books like The House of the Dragon, there's so many things that they follow. There's so many things that they don't follow. They did this, especially with Handmaid's Tale. There was so much creative license taken with that, and Rings of Fire, they had to pull from other books. Any sort of adaptation from the book is not going to be exactly the same. And that's just something that, unfortunately, we're having to accept in this. It's a stacked cast. I'm looking forward to reading the book and then seeing the movie, and I hope to do a podcast where we're talking about the film, what we liked, what we didn't like, maybe some critiques, maybe things that we were surprised by, whatever it is. I hope it's very well done. And that there's more on the way. With all that said, that's it for our updates and rants. Please feel free to leave comments and your 2 cents on either YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. I'll also have information on anything that I've promoted or referenced in this episode in the show notes or in the description below, of course, if you're watching on YouTube. Be sure to hit that subscribe button. And if you'd like tonight's episode, please give us a 5-star rating. You can follow us, that's Our Voices Project, on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Threads. This podcast also has its own Instagram page, y'all. We got our own Instagram page, Representation in Cinema. It is at RIC, that's Representation in Cinema Podcast, RIC Podcast. Go ahead and give that account a follow as well. Visit ourvoicesproject.com and sign up for our newsletter for more information about what we do. We're going to be back with new episodes released every Thursday with our Black August series starting on Thursday, August 6th. We're talking about films that center the stories of Black revolutionaries, freedom fighters, and political prisoners. We're covering films like Ida B. Wells' Chicago Special, Attica, Paris is Burning, The Stroll, and others. We highly recommend that you go and watch these films. The link are going to be provided again in the show notes or the description on YouTube. And then listen to each of these spoiler specials, again, starting on Thursday, August 6th. This has been Jackie McGriff, your host of Representation in Cinema. And as always, thank you again for listening.